Now I want to talk to you guys about unsaturated, saturated, and supersaturated solutions. So, as we know in a solution, it's a homogeneous mixture, meaning it's same throughout. Your solvent particles kind of pull apart the particles of your solute and surround them, so you get a very uniform composition. Unsaturated solutions are solutions in which the solvent can actually dissolve more solute. So I'm going back to my iced tea mixture. Now, normally I like my iced tea unsweet, but that doesn't really work for our experiment. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of sugar. Then I'm going to use my spoon and I'm going to stir it up. Stir, 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 stir. Oh. As we know, temperature does affect the rate at which a solute will dissolve. So iced tea is a little bit more difficult, right? Because it's colder, it'll take a little bit longer to dissolve. But the iced tea should be able to dissolve that amount of sugar. Now, we would say that this solution is unsaturated because it can dissolve more solute, which is the sugar. So I think we're good there. Let's give it a taste. That is a delightful amount of sweetness. Now, let's say you go to a restaurant and you love sweet tea, but they only have unsweet tea. So you get this iced tea and you just keep adding sugar packets to it. One after the other, after the other. Okay. And you stir, and you stir, and you stir, and you stir. But at some point, you realize you are never ever going to dissolve that sugar, okay? There is no way for tea at this temperature to dissolve all of the sugar that you put into that cup. So you can keep stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring, and eventually what you'll be left with is a big mound of sugar at the bottom of your glass, which maybe some of you guys enjoy slurping up. It's nice and chunky. We call this a saturated solution. Saturated means that the solvent has reached a point that it can no longer dissolve any more of the solute. So some of that extra sugar I put in there actually did dissolve, but the majority of it couldn't. Now, let's look at one more thing, which is supersaturated. Now, remember, temperature does affect the rate of dissolution. It also helps you to be able to dissolve a little bit more solute than you would be able to at other temperatures. So, I've got my tea. I made sure it was nice and hot. Last time, we added 1 teaspoon. Then I added 3 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3. Let's stir and see if we can dissolve all that sugar. At this point, pretty much all the sugar is dissolved. Now, remember, we put the same amount in this cup and this cup. So you can see, we still have a lot of sugar down here, but none down here. So, let's keep going. 1, 2, 3. I guarantee you I will not be drinking this glass of tea. And we stir, and we stir, and we stir, and the sugar continues to dissolve. Now, I could keep going. That seems like an awful waste of sugar in these times. This is what we call a supersaturated solution. As you guys can see, it was able to dissolve way more sugar than regular old iced tea could, and probably more than the solvent could actually dissolve at other temperatures. So we call this supersaturated. So the last thing before we wrap this up, I want to show you a practical application of a supersaturated solution. what you guys are looking at here is a heating pad. So it's one of those things like in the winter where you put it in your pocket and you have something warm to hold between your hands. The liquid inside of here is a supersaturated solution. And if you look closely, there's a little metal disc here at the bottom. So what happens is when you click this little metal disc, everything in the supersaturated solution just kind of falls out. The crystals in the solution, the particles of the solute, they form along this metal disc and it creates warmth. So I'm going to show you how this works. Sorry. You see the crystals growing, and they spread and they spread and they spread. This liquid turns to a solid, and it maintains its heat, I want to say, for about 30 minutes to an hour. So you guys can see it's almost finished spreading throughout. Those are all the crystals forming and falling out of solution. So you can see when I touch it now, it is not a liquid. Oh, but it is very, very warm. I probably should have gotten a thermometer to show you that. If I want to use this again, I have to boil the pack. This has like kind of a high boiling point, and when I add that heat to it, then it's able to dissolve all that solute again and turn it back into a solution. So, just kind of a fun practical application.